So what we are looking at today is the academic and research skills unit. This particular unit is focused on, so this particular unit that we're going to be covering today is actually focused on understanding how do we do research, in terms of, gathering data, information, and then obviously use it for reporting purposes. So the academic research and skills unit is important because it will help most of you understand how do we look at, getting, or let's say, how do we look at understanding the core skills which are required for us to be able to do research. And this research sometimes is done when we are looking at, obviously, taking note of information. We are looking at summarizing information by reading articles, journals, books, and in some cases we also look at paraphrasing. And this paraphrasing that we do essentially is primarily done by reading text but writing it in our own words. So when we talk about academic and research skills, we are looking at developing our understanding, and also to be able to look at developing our writing skills and organizing skills in particular. And they would be related to compiling, summarizing data in some shape or format, which could be used for reporting purposes. Now, this particular unit that we do is primarily, important at this level, in level 3 in your course, is because when you go to study in the uni, after completing this course, you are going to be looking at doing assignments and obviously studying various other modules. And they, when you go into the university, when you submit assignments, you have to be very well versed with the process of how to write academically. That means you should be able to reference your work. You should be able to essentially paraphrase work, but still giving credit to people from which, or people, places, or published data from which you've taken the work that is included in your assignments. Now, some part of this unit will be focusing on understanding your own academic strengths and weaknesses. So we will do a skills audit. We will also be looking at understanding what are the various forms of research. Some of you must have heard about primary research, secondary research. So we look at some of the research techniques in terms of how do we collect data, why is it called primary, why is the data called secondary. So an example here would be that when I sometimes look at, if I'm going to the office and I witness an incident or an accident, and I saw it first with my own eyes, an accident happening, then that would be primary data because I'm seeing it happen. It's happened in front of me. But when I go to the office and I talk about this and talk about and inform my colleagues saying that there was something horrible which happened while I was driving to the office, I witnessed an accident. So people who are listening into that information are getting it from you, who was the source, who listened or probably saw the accident happening. But because they are receiving this information secondhand, that means from you, then that source of information is called secondary information. So we look at primary research, secondary research, what is primary information, what is secondary information, and then also understand briefly what is tertiary research. So these are 3 different forms of research methods that we are going to be looking at in the second learning outcome. And then one of the things that we do quite often, and this is something whether you realize or don't realize, but we do this pretty much day in, day out basis, is we also take a lot of notes. So when you're in the class and you're attending my session currently, some of you might be taking some notes. And these notes are looking at writing important bits that I'm highlighting or talking about in the presentation or in our discussion. So when you take these notes, you write them in your own way. And the idea is that at some stage, if you need to refer back to this information, then you're going to be able to recall it easily. And that is why you're looking at, doing this particular process of what is called note taking. So we will understand what is note taking. Why do we take notes when you're invited to a meeting and you are and somebody in the team is a minutes taker? That means somebody is looking at taking the minutes of the meeting, is a person who's actually taking notes. Sometimes you see in offices, in legal firms, solicitor firms, you'll have somebody who will be a minute taker, or somebody who will be taking, a secretary will be taking the notes, or an executive assistant will be taking the notes because there's an important meeting happening, a board meeting happening. when sometimes you go to your place of work, your manager might hold a daily briefing, and some of you would be given certain tasks to do or certain functions to do. And that is where you'll be making a note of, okay, if this is the main client or main customer coming today, or this is the appointment list for the patients which are coming into the surgery. So you're taking a note of these things, and that process through which you do this is a process of what is called note taking. So we'll understand how do we collate information, how do we gather this information, and how does this information come from various sources. So that is where we will look at learning outcome 3. In learning outcome 4, we have to look at choosing a piece of research and using that piece of research which has been published. And I'll give you a few websites that we will look at. What we are going to do is basically present that work in a summarized format. And that would mean that we are going to be looking at drafting a research proposal. With that proposal in mind, we'll put some aim and objectives. We'll look at doing some background, collection of data, or maybe literature review, decide on a methodology, how would we go about doing a research. And then in learning outcome 5, we'll be looking at publishing a miniature summary of that report. So it will involve, learning outcome 4 will involve developing a research proposal, and learning outcome 5 would involve you presenting that work academically by completing a template that we will provide, and that template will essentially help you present your research that you have done. Now, in the health and social care sector, we basically see a lot of research being carried out within the NHS by the King's Fund, by CQC, by National Institute of Care and Excellence. And we do see that these research or basically, reports which are created are done in order to improve the services or, improve essentially the service levels or standards in terms of, how patients receive care. Now, any sort of improvement plan, a corrective action plan, or an improvement plan which is to be put in place. For example, I think some of you must have heard about that, currently the wait times with A&Es are way beyond the service level, which have been prescribed by the Care Quality Commission, CQC. Generally, there should not be more than 2 hours of wait time when you call the ambulance picks you up as a patient and then takes you to the hospital. But the handover from the time they pick you up to the hospital or the doctors or nurses should not be more than 2 hours. But currently the wait time in certain areas in England and Wales is in excess of 4 to 6 hours. So when this has to be reviewed, ministers or the Department of Health, senior people in the management, when they review this, they look at, reviewing it from a point of view of collecting data. And that data is collected from lots of different, clinical commissioning groups, the trusts which run the hospitals in England and Wales. And what they do is they look at compiling the results from collating all these, reading the reports, then collating all the results, and then compile it to come out with these turnaround or wait times. Now, if the wait time is more than 2 hours, then obviously, they are expected to put some changes or corrective action plans in place, which allows these times to be brought down. And as a result, frees up the time for ambulances to be able to, meet more requirements of patients. So in order to do this, what generally tends to happen is that the data is gathered at the end of the year, and then they study this particular data to see whether the times are being met or not being met. And then when they look at putting a corrective action plan in place to say how this can be corrected, how this time can be reduced, and how can we look at meeting the standard which has been set as per the policies to 2 hours, there are lots of things which will be reviewed. And these review of things, when it is done, is basically going to produce a report to say that this is the problem that we looked at. These are the reasons why this problem is occurring. And, in order to solve this particular long waiting time, which is a problem, we need to look at putting these changes in place. And once these changes are implemented, embedded in the system, we will see that the wait times will start to come down. And at the end of it, what happens is the committee or the person who's writing the report or the group which is writing the report also makes recommendations to say if these are followed in the future or if these are adhered to as guidelines in the future, then the times will not be exceeding the times which have been actually set. So this is an example of a small, research which would be carried out to say why is it that the wait times are more than 2 hours. Either there is a problem in terms of setting the wait times or the guidance which have been set. And if the guidance is fine, then we need to look at what are the reasons why this is not being met. And this is an example of a small research will be done, which will be compiling the reports at the end of the year to see month on month the data and see where the lag is happening or where the problem is. And this is going to be presented as a small research project in Learning Outcome 4 and in Learning Outcome 5. So in 4, you will put together a proposal, and in 5, you will be putting together a report to primarily, highlight the research that you have done in any area that you choose within health and social care. So I've just given an example of, the A&E wait times, and you could pick up something, different. Why was, say, for example, there were a number of deaths in the care homes during COVID pandemic. Now, this is a very large area of research. We look at smaller topics that you can actually accomplish within the time frame of the next 6 to 8 weeks to be able to complete, this unit. The last learning outcome in this particular chapter focuses primarily on your own reflection of, your academic achievements. So in the first learning outcome, we'll be doing a skills audit, and the skills audit is going to be focused on understanding your English language skills, your academic writing skills. We'll be looking at focusing on your IT skills and your referencing skills, Harvard referencing skills. Now, we will get into the details, but learning outcome 1 is related to learning outcome 6, because in the first one, you'll do an audit. That means you'll try and find out what is your competence level on the English language, in general, your academic writing, Harvard referencing, and your IT skills. And in learning outcome 6, we are going to look at putting a plan in place to ensure that we are able to improve some of these skills if we have ranked ourselves as that our skills are beginner skills or very basic skills. So at level 3, what we are going to be doing is developing what is called a personal development plan, PDP. And the PDP is going to be developed basis your SWOT analysis and your audit. And then in learning outcome 6, we are going to be looking at putting down some activities which we are going to undertake, which will directly be related to improving your English skills, your academic writing skills, your Harvard referencing skills, your IT skills. And these activities, once they are completed, they will help you improve your IT, your academic writing, your Harvard referencing, and your English language ability skills to a certain level. And that is what we are going to capture in the personal development plan. So this unit that we are going to do is an important unit because it will help you understand how to develop researching skills, how to develop writing skills specifically in terms of academic writing for assignments. It will help you in paraphrasing skills, which is when you read something, but without changing the meaning of it, you write it in your own words. That is called paraphrasing. You will also be looking at understanding and developing what are called note-taking skills. How do you take notes when you sit in a class? How do you take notes when you attend a meeting? How do you look at listening, using active and passive listening? How do you look at gathering information and data that could be useful for you in the future? And, in some cases, this process is called note-taking. So we'll be looking at 3 different methods, the Cornell's method, the T method, in terms of how notes are taken. And then also learn about research, primary research, secondary research, data, and how do we go about collecting data and then compiling it into a mini research report, which is required to be done for this particular unit. So this unit has 6 learning outcomes. We are looking at more or less about 6 sessions to be able to cover this particular unit. Today, I'm going to be focused on starting with learning outcome 1 after this bit of introduction on the unit. And what we are going to do is look at undertaking and understanding a bit more detail about how do we assess our own academic competence in the area of when we have to conduct research. So let me just switch you over to the presentation slides that we'll be looking at discussing this. And what we will do with regards to the first learning outcome would be to go about assessing our own academic skills, and they are going to be in 4 broad areas: English language skills, academic writing skills, referencing skills, and IT skills. And this is going to be a bit of a start towards this particular unit of looking at understanding why do we need to have these skills specifically going forward when some of you are going to be looking at joining uni to start your bachelor's degree. Now, the aim of the unit is to develop academic and research skills and language skills which are needed for you to be able to formally present research both in writing and orally. Now, sometimes you must have realized at your place of work when you are asked by your manager, your supervisor to say, could you help compile this report? Now, give you a broad and a very simple example. A lot of us, have been to shopping stores, for shopping for grocery, specifically in stores like ASDA, Tesco, Morrison's, Sainsbury. Now, sometimes you see when you just go into the store, when you're entering the store, you normally see somebody standing with a bit of a ticker in the hand. And every time a new customer walks into the store, he presses the ticker and that runs a counter. So some parts of the day, somebody at the store's entry is normally positioned to be able to keep a note of how many customers are entering the store at that given point in time. Now, why is this being done? This is being done because the manager wants to find out, during what time of the day, how many customers come into the store and what is the busiest time for the store to be able to handle customers. Now, the person standing at the door who's clicking on the ticker is basically looking at, tracking the number of customers walking into the store. And why is this being done? Any idea why is this being done? So why is this being done in terms of, the retail store is because they want to look at taking a note of, how many people are actually walking into the store at any given point in time to do some shopping. Now, when we look at this is primarily being done because the store manager wants to find out how many customers are coming in. And what the process the person is doing is basically looking at recording the number of customers walking through the door. So what is this data? The number of clicks that he does. So assuming, he's standing there for an hour and he greets everyone at the store coming in. And at some stage, what tends to happen is, if I bring this picture in, for example, if you look at this particular, customer standing, one of the customer service executives standing on the entrance of the door, he is basically, looking at counting the number of customers. At a later stage, when this data is to be reviewed, he would note down in the diary that, okay, I was standing at the entrance of the store between, say, 9 to 10 a.m. in the morning, and I had 51 customers walking in. Now, that data which has been collected, 51 customers walking in between 9 to 10 a.m. in the morning in one of the stores, is actually a data that could be used in the future to correlate to what could be, say, for example, the busiest hour of the store, when the store opens at 9 in the morning and closes at 9 in the evening. And at different points in time, the manager would ask different people to be positioned at the store, and the person would be basically looking at, taking a note of, how many customers are walking into the particular store. Now, this is a simple collection of data. The other bit that I would basically put in front of you as an example is, I don't know how many of you have a Tesco Club card. If you raise your hand, if you have a Tesco Club card, then I would know that, okay, when you go and do some shopping at the Tesco store, how many of you have a Tesco Club card? Any idea? How many of you have a Tesco Club card? So when we look at doing some shopping at Tesco's, and towards the end and the tills, what you generally do is you scan your club card. Now the club card is essentially recording the transactions that you're doing, or on that day, what material or goods you're buying from the store. And that then is used at the end of the month by Tesco stores to be able to send you some vouchers or coupons to say, thank you for shopping at Tesco's. Here's a bit of a discount coupon because you did shopping on these many products. And they also send you coupons which basically would say that because you shop for eggs, milk, grocery, this and this, they would send you coupons which are going to be usable for you to discount and buy more stuff in the store. Now, how is this calculated? How is this data or data which is collected at the tills when you scan your club card, then calculated or compiled into information, and information then used as knowledge to be able to send across coupons to you? This is all happening by understanding data and analyzing that data, collecting the data at various places during your shopping process, finally getting recorded in the Tesco club card, and then towards the end of the month or at the end of 2 months, when you get some vouchers coming in through the post, is basically that data has been utilized to do some calculations to see what products you buy on a regular basis from the store, and then how does Tesco ask you to buy more of these products, or increase the sale of your, you increase the sale amount or the basket that you essentially shop every week or every month. And this would be by promoting or sending you coupons, discount coupons, promotional coupons, to say that if you shop and you buy 2 of these, you get the third one at 25% off or get a 10% off. And this is all being done through research. Somebody in the background is crunching that data, is analyzing those figures or the data which is being captured at the time of when you go through the tills through your club card, and then using that data to use it to send out appropriate discount coupons to you. And this all that we get to understand is the process of research. What they want to do is, how much do you shop? How frequently do you shop? What is the average basket or the trolley in terms when you shop? What is the average basket size in terms of average money that you spend in Tesco's? What are the kind of products you're shopping? And this is all being done by the way of collecting data, and this data being analyzed to produce some sort of a report, and this report being utilized to send coupons and promotional offers to you, is basically but nothing but research. Now, similarly, if I give you an example of how this is done, in the GP surgeries or in places, is that sometimes you get text messages from your surgery. You say you're due a test, or your blood tests are due, or you need to come in to do this test, or things like that. Now, how is this done? In the system, they have put reminders that once these milestones are reached, or if this particular date elapses, then the system triggers you a message. Now, this is all being done because there is at some stage some data being collected that is being analyzed by the system. Some part of it is being done through software, and then the programming of the software is being done in a way wherein it triggers a text message and you receive it saying that your MOT is due, or your blood test is due, or you need to come in and do your thyroid test or check your blood pressure, or your repeat medication is ready. And this is all being done through collection of data, and then somebody analyzing this data in the background, and then triggering certain let's say processes. And that would mean that some bit of working on the data has been done in terms of research, and that is then being sent across to you for taking further action. Now, if we look at now doing the same thing on your academic, from a point of view of skills. Now, when we talk about English language and your language skills, what we are going to be doing is basically talking about your, skills in terms of vocabulary, your grammar, your reading, your writing, your listening, speaking, which are the 4 components of English language. We are looking at fluency, we're looking at accuracy, we are looking at confidence in terms of how you're able to use some of these, your English language skills, and then have conversations with regards to colleagues, friends, peers, or at your place of work, or even with clients, patients, and customers. Now, when we are looking at doing analysis on our own academic and skills in particular, we'll come to academic skills in a minute, but when we look at English skills in particular, what we want to be able to do is primarily understand that, okay, what I want to do is understand how good your command on the language is, how good are you on speaking, listening, reading, and writing. Now, in order to do this particular assessment, there is an English test which I'll ask everyone to take. And this is primarily a test on the British Council website. Now, when I say you need to do this particular test, what you have to do at some stage will be to use this link which is provided. And I'll switch you over, to showing you how this test has to be done. And this will be used to basically look at, let's say, capturing your level of English language that you have in terms of, proficiency. So let me share that screen. So when you cut and paste this particular link onto your browser, this is the website that you will come to. And this particular website is going to ask you to do an English test. Now, this is a multiple choice question test that you're going to be doing. And this test will take about 15 minutes maximum. It has about 25 questions, and it will take approximately 15 minutes for you to be able to complete this test. Now, when you do this particular test on the website, this test is going to check your reading, writing, listening, speaking proficiency. In that, it'll also check your grammar, your vocabulary, your punctuation, your say accuracy in terms of how accurate you are in giving the answer. And this test is what you need to be able to do by doing a bit of a registration. So for example, if I want to do this particular test, what I would need to do is register. And what I would suggest is if I go ahead and register, for this particular test, let me go ahead and I'll show you the process in terms of how I'm going to go about and register for this particular test. So I'm just going to see if we have registered earlier. If not, then what you'll need to do is create on a login. So you mention your first name, your last name, your place of residence, which is obviously going to be UK. We'll put our email address down. Choose a username, put a password in, and then confirm the password. And then you don't need to do anything. Just click on the above 18. I'm not a robot, obviously. And then click new account. Now, once this account is created, what we need to be able to do is essentially, go in and be able to do the test. So I'm going to go back. Once I've registered, just leave that tab open. I'm going to click on this again. And as you can see, because I'm on the same website and I'm logged in now, what it'll ask me to do is take a test. So when I click on this and it allows me to take a test, it's got 30 multiple choice questions. It has got part A and B. And what we need to do is basically start this test, which will check my level of English. It is a half-an-hour test. You can obviously complete it quickly, but it'll ask you to test your language by ask you, to understand how good you are in your English language by asking you to do this multiple choice test. The big book is, so I am certain. So basically quickly taking this test. So I'm just going to quickly go through this test as I'm quickly doing it now. So basically, in your case, if I just in the background put this on the chat, my suggestion would be if you click on that link and in the meanwhile, go ahead and obviously do the test. I'm trying to just quickly finish it off. So the last one. Okay, so what will happen at the end of the test is it is going to give you a result. And as you can see, this result which has come out is B2 upper intermediate. Now, what I would expect you to do at this stage would be when you have taken the exam, I would ask you to do a screenshot, of the page, or you can essentially save this page, by printing it out. So if I press Command P or Control P, and then basically go ahead and save this as a PDF, because this is what I would need as a proof in terms of how I've gone about and obviously done the test. So I can save this as a PDF and then save it somewhere on the machine, on your PC or laptop, so that you are clear that this is something which is available and which is something that you have got for you to be able to refer to at a later stage. So if I just save this minute, and I have done so. So this gives me my English language skills. Now, the higher the level you come out, the better it is, because obviously on your English language skills, you'll be able to, see that you are able to score a B1, or you're able to score a beginner's level. You're going to be either at the intermediate level or in some cases, you could also be at the advanced level, which could be C1 or C2. The higher the level, which shows the higher proficiency of English language you have. So one of the ways that you are going to look at assessing your English language skills is going to be by looking at doing this test on the British Council website. It might ask you to do a registration, which you need to do. And once you have done the registration, it'll ask you to take this test by following this link. And when you finish your test, my suggestion would be to take a screenshot, because this screenshot that you take will be used to complete one of the tasks in the assignment at a later stage. Now, the other bit that we have to do is, which is what is called the SWOT analysis. So I don't know how many of you have heard the word SWOT. Have you come across the word SWOT or SWOT analysis? So in this case, what we are looking at doing is, we are looking at primarily doing our SWOT analysis, and this would be to identify what is called our strengths, weaknesses, your strengths, weaknesses, your opportunities that you think you would have, and then the threats that you can face, primarily because of lack of knowledge or maybe lack of skills. Now, if I bring this across, this is what a SWOT analysis template actually looks like. So when we look at a SWOT analysis template, what we are looking at essentially doing is primarily looking at using a standard template that we will give you. And that standard template will essentially allow you to go about doing your SWOT analysis. That means you have to identify your strengths, your weaknesses. We will be looking at identifying some of the opportunities that you think you would have, say, for example, after finishing this particular course, and what could be the threats that you would have, basically opportunities that you will miss, which is where, if you had not studied this course, then the idea would be to write them on the threat side. So this is a table that I would be sharing through the Moodle, and also, it will be available when you log in. And here the idea would be to try and do, a SWOT analysis specifically related to, let's look at, there are two ways that I would suggest that you could do this. One primarily would be to do a SWOT analysis on your personal self, which is to look at what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what could be the opportunities, and what could be the threats. So strengths would have questions like, what do you do well? Questions like, what can you do best in terms of offering, say, services, or your let's say some sort of services to patients. What are your strong personality traits? What could be things which you are good at in terms of your skills? And they would come out as strength areas, because obviously they will define your personality, how you conduct yourself, and obviously why does it differentiate you from others. When we talk about weaknesses, here you're going to be looking at what are the areas that I need to, say, for example, what are the areas that I need to improve on. So there are certain things, for example, you might not be very well familiar with academic referencing or academic writing and Harvard referencing. So this could be one of the areas that you could pick out, where that what would be the areas that I need to improve my knowledge and my skills on. You could also be putting a weakness down as something that you don't know very well. So, for example, some of you might say that I don't know Microsoft PowerPoint quite well. So this could be an area which could be a weakness, and you would be looking at improving that. You could also be looking at maybe putting down here things like skills that you lack or trainings that you need. In some cases, you would also look at maybe some limitations that you have, and they would be treated as what are called weaknesses. Now, when we talk about opportunities, here you're going to be looking at mentioning things which could be, if you were to do these trainings, or if you were to finish this course, this is the opportunity that this course will present. I will be able to land a job, for example. So opportunities are basically going to be things that you mention, which are going to relate to the opposite of your, if there were no weaknesses and you had overcome your weaknesses, then those weaknesses would be able to provide you opportunities to be able to get a better job. For example, if you do this course and you complete this course, that would give you an opportunity to start a new job. It could be areas that you mentioned which could be related to say, for example, you have very good IT skills, and that could provide an opportunity for you to do some part-time job, working from home. If you're a very good if your skills on social media are very good, that could provide you opportunities for additional employment or additional, say, for example, if you've done any courses in health and social care, like infection control or health and hygiene. We talk about first aid courses, and if these courses are that you have certifications for, they can provide you opportunity to get a better job, or obviously open some channels for you in terms of securing a better job and a better career, and they would be termed as opportunities. Now, threats are generally tend to be things which you could be affected by. And these could be, say, for example, if you're applying for a job and there are 4 other candidates which primarily are more qualified than you, then they are a threat to you because you would not get that job, and the employer might pick up them because they have more experience and more qualifications. So threats tend to be areas that you have to mention, which would mean that these are areas which can affect you in particular, or they could be posing a competition to you because of the absence of skills, knowledge that you might not have, and would be other candidates having, or other people having within, who are trying to do or basically vie for the same job. So when we talk about threats in, say, for example, SWOT analysis on a personal basis, you're going to be looking at, what is your competition, what could be changes which could affect you from outside. For example, environmental changes. It could be like, for example, cost of living crisis. So money could be, scarce because if you're looking at buying something, then that might not be the case. So when we look at essentially talking about threat, here you're going to be looking at external threats or external things which are going to be able to affect you, and they could be affecting you personally, economically, socially, and they could be mentioned as threats here. So using this template, what you will need to be able to do at some stage would be to identify your own strengths, weaknesses, and what we are going to do is, because we are not doing it generically, so here what we are going to do essentially is basically relate it to person-centered approach. Now, if you recall, we had studied 8 values, 8 person-centered approach, values, which were things like dignity, respect, individuality. So what I would suggest is, if you consider the definitions of those person-centered values and see and basically populate your SWOT template with opportunities, strengths, weaknesses, and let's say these 4 quadrants, and that would be good enough. Now, the second bit that you could do is also look at, once you've done your English test, on the English test website, when you've got your result, what you're also going to be able to see is how you've done on that test. Now, the breakup of the test that you have, got in terms of the results would essentially mean that you are going to be able to see which questions you got correct and which questions you got wrong. So in terms of your English language skills, you could look at, doing a bit of SWOT analysis and put them into, strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threat. And the third would be IT skills. Now, when we talk about IT skills, you could look at, this particular template, which I'm also going to provide you, and that will allow you to do a skills audit. Now, when I say a skills audit, because IT skills can be, very many different types. So what we want to be able to do is look at, your skills that we want to do an audit on. And this audit that we want to do has to be on skills like, your basic skills, which will be related to, if I say, things like when I put it that I have good, say for example, I have IT skills would be say typing skills. We are going to be looking at use of say MS Office, Microsoft Office, that you are able to use the Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and those kind of things quite well. We can also be looking at doing a bit of an audit on understanding our organizational skills. It could be related to you doing a skills, including your skills on things like let's say a use of a particular I would say software. So for example, if I would say we are using Zoom as a software now for sessions, so if you are familiar with Zoom, you're familiar with softwares like Join Me or say Google Chat, those are some of the skills that you would need today to define in terms of your IT skills. So here the idea would be to do a skills audit on your own IT skills, and that would be something that you could rank yourself on by saying that if you have good organizing skills or good skills in good knowledge of Microsoft Office, like you're able to create a Word document, right, or make a presentation on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best and 1 being beginner's level. Now if you rate yourself as 4 or 5, then you have good skills on that side, and they could be used to do your SWOT analysis. And the last section that I want to look at is basically Harvard referencing skills. So do you have skills on, say, academic writing? Are you able to take notes, paraphrase, and reference your work using the Harvard referencing system? Now, this is also called the author date style system. Author date style system. Now, if you're aware of these could be areas that I could put in terms of my SWOT analysis. So now if I say that I have person-centered skills, I have skills which are wherein it allows me to say, for example, respect individuality. I am independent in decision making, for example. Now, these are your personal strengths. These are your personality or your strengths. I have got good organizing. So if I just put it this way, organizing skills. I have good MS Office skills, and then I would also say I have good note-taking skills. So why do I say good note-taking skills? Because I, for example, in this case, know the Cornell's method, of note-taking. So I'm familiar with this method, or you're familiar with the shorthand method of taking notes. Shorthand. These are all different methods which are used for note-taking. Now, if I also know how to do Harvard referencing, that could be one of my strength areas. So this is how you would go about doing your SWOT analysis. Now, what could be areas that I need to improve in? So I need to say improve my academic writing skills. That one of the things could be I need to be able to write assignments. I need to be able to write assignments without copying and pasting and reducing similarity or plagiarism on my assignments. So this is an area that I need to improve, and I would write academic writing skills as one of my weakness, that I need to improve this particular skill. Then I could also be looking at writing about information seeking skills. Now, sometimes you would see that, when you are out and about and you need to ask what are called questions or queries. Now, if you shy away from asking questions, then, you might not be able to gather the information or data which is required for you to analyze and take a decision later. So information seeking skills is something that you are shying away from asking questions or, clarifying your queries, and they could be one of the weakness. You could also have a weakness which could be related to that, say, for example, my written communication skills or written communication is, at beginner's level. Now, this is coming from the English test we are doing. So if your writing skill comes out at the beginner's level, that means you need to improve it to the intermediate level or advanced level before you start your university studies. So it is important for you to improve your writing skills, and that could be one of the weakness. Now, opportunities, when I look at in terms of opportunities, would be so when I talk about opportunities, what could be the opportunities that you would want to put in your SWOT analysis. So these could be examples that I would put it is that, say for example, one of the opportunities is that I can look at. So one of the opportunities that I would put is I can work in teams now, or I would like to work in teams. Now, this would be because of the fact that you have certain skills, that give you the background and experience that you worked in teams or teams earlier, and that would be something that you would be looking either to develop, or in some cases, you are going to be looking at, going into by choosing that because you feel these are areas in which I have, no weakness, or, I have not lot of knowledge. So there are no market, gaps, as I would say, essentially not market, but maybe the gaps that you would feel in your skills and attributes you don't have. And that is why you would want to look at, doing this. So when we talk about opportunities, we are looking at working with externally with people, and they would, be looking at you from a stronger, say, competitive position, in that because this person does not have any weakness or maybe has knowledge, the flip side of it has knowledge, that allows the person to, work in teams. So this could be one of the opportunities that you look at, specifically. I might also say that, I have opportunities in primarily, say, for example, I can work in customer services, or, you would want to work in customer services. So this is an opportunity because, or you could, if I look at the medical, and health and social care sector terms, so I can work in front desk duties because this is an area that I want to develop. And you would want to work in the front desk, or the front desk would mean administration or reception, because you're able to deal with customers or clients, or you have prior knowledge of how patient information records can be filled, and they could be, opportunities. Now, threats could be areas in which you want to become better. So in this case, you want to become better because you want to look at training in health and safety, or you want to look at training in, say, hygiene control, or you want to look at getting a training on how to deal with, how to make use of PPE, for example, in dealing with COVID pandemic. And these could be areas that you would feel that because you've not got enough knowledge, that is where it poses a threat. Now, a lot of people shied away from initially working and offering services as volunteers during the COVID pandemic is because they weren't aware of, the symptoms, which, or the, how they could contract the disease, or how they could safeguard themselves from the disease and not contract it and not be life-threatening. So in some areas, because of lack of knowledge, lack of PPE, for example, personal protective equipment, lots of death occurred. So obviously people were unsure, and that is what basically poses, threat. So lack of available equipment, lack of proper training, or lack of knowledge about a certain area or certain medication, or in this case, certain job role, would mean that this could pose a threat. If you are given that job without adequate training, that could lead to a disaster, or that could lead to a problem rather than a solution, because in those cases, instead of treating the patient or maybe helping out, it might lead to complications. So in those cases, proper training and knowledge would be required in order for you to be able to, let's say, start doing that job role. And that could be treated as what is called threat. So if we just go back to the presentation for a minute and discuss, SWOT analysis. So what you would need to do in the first task is where it talks about assessing your own academic strengths and weaknesses, including English language skills. That is, we have already done by doing, this particular test and taking a screenshot, of the test results. Now, the second part talks about how do we look at, looking at doing a SWOT analysis. So this is where we are going to be looking at analyzing our strengths and weaknesses only to begin with. And that is what the task is asking us to do. Now, in task 1.2, it is asking us to do, and obviously look at setting goals of how do we look at improvements. So when we look at improvements, we know that, okay, I've done my SWOT analysis now, and I understand what are my strengths and weakness areas. Now, in order to improve on my weakness areas, what I need to now do is do what is called a task setting, which will allow me to improve my weaknesses. Now, how do we go about, doing this? We do this using what is something called SMART, template. And the SMART template basically stands, it's an acronym which basically stands for what is called specific. S for specific, M is for measurable, A is for attainable, R is for relevant, T is time bound, and R is, review. So if you look at just the SMART, SMART, it is basically an acronym, for, when you have to set goals, when you have to look at doing improvements in your skills and your areas of work, what we are going to do is set what is called a SMART target. And this SMART target is an acronym which basically stands for S means specific. So we have to be specific in terms of, setting our targets or goals. M is those goals that you set up, or the targets that you set up need to be measurable. A is basically they need to be attainable. That means I need to set a goal or a target which I can go ahead and achieve. That means it can be accomplished. And then R means I need to set what is called realistic targets. I don't want to be setting a target which is unachievable. I don't want to be setting a target which basically, or a goal which is not achievable in a certain span of time, or it requires more resources and it's something which is beyond me. And then what we need to be also doing is basically set a target which is, time bound. That means it is not an open-ended activity. It is an activity or a task that I'm going to do, which will help me in achieving that particular activity or the task, but within a specific of time, because time is finite. So when we look at setting what are called self-improvement goals, what we need to be able to do is use this particular acronym or a template, which is called the SMART goals template, and then basically decide on what kind of goals we are going to set, how we are going to go about achieving them, what are the activities or initiatives that I would need to undertake to be able to achieve those and complete those activities, thereby achieving those goals, and then achieving the particular skill that I have done in terms of setting that as a target. And that needs to be done using what is called the SMART template. Now, a simple example that I would give you here is, if I need to set a goal to say, I want to improve my referencing skill, I want to learn Harvard referencing system. So what is the specific goal that I'm setting? The specific goal that I'm setting, which is coming out of my SWOT analysis that I've done in task 1.1, is that my weakness is I need to look at developing skills for or knowledge about Harvard referencing. So my specific target here is I need to learn about Harvard referencing skills. So this specific target that I've set, I'm not saying that I need to learn referencing skills, because in referencing, when I look at, there are lots of different types of referencing system. You have AP1 referencing system. We have referencing system, which are primarily going to be APA style, GHOST style, ISO style, MLA style, Turabian style. But in the UK's context, my aim is to study and understand and learn what is called the Harvard referencing system. So my specific target is I want to learn about Harvard referencing. I'm not saying I want to learn about referencing. I want to learn about Harvard referencing. Now, how do I go about measuring it? What I would do is, before I start looking at measuring it, is that I would basically say that I would need to understand what are the various goals or tasks that would I need to complete in order to learn about Harvard referencing first. So when I say goals that I need to be able to achieve, is that I would look at maybe reading or watching a Harvard referencing presentation video. I would look at and going through a presentation to understand why and how Harvard referencing is done, where the material comes from, how do I reference it when it is with one author, with two authors, or multiple authors. And this is what I'm going to define in what is called measurable. That means I want to look at the ways in which, how would I go about saying that I've completed these tasks and they would then help me achieve the skill. So measurable here would be to say how long and how much and what you're going to study to be able to develop this skill. So reading a presentation, watching a video, and then maybe using the Harvard referencing generator to understand how skills referencing has to be done would be useful for you, primarily to go about, developing this skill. And that would be something that I will define in measurable. Now, when I say attainable, what I want to do is I want to specifically set a goal which is realistic and which is attainable. That means I need to look at setting a timeline that I would go about, reading this presentation or this handout and watch this video. And I need to be able to, put something which will allow me to achieve the, objective. And whether I need to watch a video, whether I need to read a presentation, a book, do I need to take any training or maybe some coaching from somebody, my teacher, my lecturer, to understand how referencing is to be done or where is it required, that will all be the scope of what the attainability will be. Then when I go to realistic, I'm going to be putting realistic targets. How soon can I be able to achieve this? Can I achieve this in 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks? I need to see that how long the activities are going to take for me to be able to complete. So, for example, if I want to learn Harvard referencing, I would maybe go through some exercises, write an assignment, go about trying to do referencing. That would take 4 to 6 weeks. So the time in which this activity would be relevant for me is what I would put in the relevancy side of things. And that is going to be realistic. Now, towards the end, I need to put a timeline. How will I pick this up? How soon will I be able to, do referencing and learn it? Here you're essentially going to be putting a timeline. So the timeline could be 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, depending on how many hours you spend, what material you go through. And when you thoroughly go through that material and different types of material, you would be confident that I have now achieved how to do referencing. I've understood the relevance of referencing, and in places where referencing cannot be done directly using the text, then I can use paraphrasing and still reference the material. That would be what is where you will define the time. So whether I will do it in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 weeks, something which you would be looking at doing it at your own pace, and you would basically define that in T, or which is going to be time bound. So, looking at the the weaknesses that you've got from your SWOT analysis, my suggestion would be to use this SMART template that I will share with you. And this SMART template, that I will share with you would be a blank template, and that is what you will use primarily to complete, I would say, your task 1.2. And if I show you this particular template, this is going to be the SMART template that you'll be looking at doing. And obviously this particular template defines, as I explained to you, specifically in the health and social care context, how do you go about filling this template. So here we have talked about recruitment in health and social care. So recruit historically, sometimes what we do is we look at recruiting people from BAME community. So the SMART targets have been defined, SMART, and then using this template, an example has been filled. The goal was to recruit so many people within this particular sector, and how you've gone about doing it is basically mentioned, in this template. And then what I would expect you to do is at some stage, once you have gone through the example, you would basically then decide the goals that you have put for yourself and then fill this template up. And that would be accomplishing task 1.2. Is that okay? Any questions on this so far? Any questions, anybody? So if I look at, going into the specification, unit specification, we have discussed 1.1 and 1.2. So assessing your own academic, and academic strengths and weaknesses, specifically for English language skills, which is using the exam link which I provided on British Council website, and then looking at how do we set targets which are going to be SMART targets using this particular template. Now we're going to be looking at developing a plan which will be to go about achieving those targets. And that is again the second part of the SMART template, which I've shown, is to set those targets and then go about achieving those targets by defining what activities you are going to be doing. And they would essentially be, helping you complete the merit task. So if I just switch you over to the template again on the slide. So here, the example that I've taken is which talks about develop a plan to show how targets will be achieved. Now, example that is taken in the SMART template is increase the number of people in public health as an example, as a goal which has been set from minority groups. So the target and the plan that has been put together using what is called SMART, which is basically, what is defined on this side. And then when I look at, the target which has been, done using SMART, the idea here is to go about then, defining realistic goals in terms of how you would, go about achieving these objectives. And you have to think about it, because at the end of the day, you will need to be specific about the goal. You'll have to be putting some things down, which is how you would measure this goal towards the end of the day. And then, how you would go about achieving it. What are the activities that you will complete, milestones that you will complete to be able to achieve it. Then how do you go about being that the goals that you have set are going to be realistic or not. And then in how many days or how many weeks or months you would go about achieving it would be mentioned in terms of time. So this is a blank template that I put up here, and you're going to be using this to primarily put, what is called a SMART objective. And that SMART objective would be something related to, your own, let's say, weakness that you have analyzed by doing the SWOT analysis earlier. And then using this template, you're going to be looking at defining what is the specific task, what is the standard you're looking at meeting. Is this something that you can achieve? Is it workable? Is it feasible? And then if it is feasible, it is workable, you're going to put down the activities and resources which are required for you to be able to achieve that. And then towards the end, when are you going to start and when are you going to achieve or complete that particular task or activities would be defined in what is called, time bound or the T part of the SMART objectives. Now, assuming you're able to do this for for what I've explained as, say, how a referencing, I want to improve, or say, I want to learn how to use Harvard referencing method. Now, if this is your objective, you need to define what are the specific tasks. So you need to learn. So here you're looking at Harvard referencing system. That is the specific task. How you're going to be able to measure it? That one measurement goal could be, I am able to write my assignment and use Harvard referencing system to reference the work compiled or reference the evidence compiled. Now, this is something which is measurable. Now, how do you go about measuring this? You're going to be looking at, saying, I will. So in this case, you're achievable. It is achievable. It is achievable because you're going to be putting some activities down. So I will watch a Harvard referencing video presentation. Okay, that is one activity. Second is use the Harvard referencing guide to read and understand the various types of referencing methods, which is direct quotes. So you do direct quotes and paraphrasing. And then you would also say that I will use Harvard referencing tutorial for Microsoft Word and watch and learn from it. So these are specific activities that you would do, including resources like you need the Harvard referencing presentation, you need the Harvard referencing guide to be able to achieve this particular task that you're setting. Now, how quickly you're going to go about doing it? I would say 4 weeks. So when are you going to start? I'm going to start, say, on 30th September and then end this by, say, 30th October. And that is what you have defined very clearly as what are the start times and the end times. And this is something that you are going to do for task 1M1 as an example, which I've shown as an example. And that would help you achieve the merit activity. So any questions on this so far? Let me know if you have any questions. So in order to recap what we've covered today in this session, we are going to, because this particular learning outcome is focused on what is called be able to. That means you have to do it. You have to practically do it. So it says be able to assess. That means you have to do your own assessment. How do we start? First part, we are going to be looking at doing this English test on the British Council website, which I've sent you a link of. And that would allow you to essentially assess your own skills in terms of English language in particular. So that is the first part that you have to do as a task or as an activity to be able to achieve this particular, let's say, part. The second is to set self-improvement targets. So in order to do that self-improvement target, what we need to be able to do is what is called a skills audit. And in order to do the skills audit, what I will do is basically share this template with you, which is the skills audit template. And this skills audit template would essentially allow you to restrict your improvement areas that we want. We don't want to look at your personality. We don't want to do personal and professional. What we want to do is do it specifically related to the unit. So what I would want to do is use this particular template, which has a rating scale of 1 to 3. 3 means you are advanced. 1 means you have, say, for example, 1 means you are able to do it well. 3 means you can't do it. So you have to rank yourself on the organization skills, information seeking skills, reading and note-taking skills, writing skills, spoken communication, use of technological skills like software, Microsoft Office, PowerPoint, and use and skills with relates to your numeric skills. Now, using this template, you're going to be looking at ranking yourself, and when you fill this template up, this will be looking at giving you an idea of what your skills are and what your weaknesses are. Now, from this skills audit template, we're going to put data into what is called the SWOT template. In particular, we're going to be focused on what is called the strengths and weaknesses in particular. And strengths and weaknesses in particular, when you pick up and you write it down, would be put into this particular template that I'm showing to you, which I've used earlier. And this SWOT analysis template would allow you to pick out your strength and weakness areas. So when you do your skills audit, anything that you're putting as 3, that means that is your weakness. If you're putting 1, that means your strength. If you're putting 2, you're intermediate. So basically what I would say is 1s and 3s is what you have to pick out. 1s and 2s will come. Be looking at developing a plan, and this plan is going to be taking forward our our SMART target that we have done, and that would be in terms of filling this template up first to say what is your SMART plan, and then this is going to be put in using a template which is called a personal development plan, or basically a plan. If I would say here, develop a personal development plan, and this would essentially be putting those SMART, let's say objectives down into this particular format, and that would help accomplish the merit task for learning outcome 1. So I hope this has been very clear. The session is about understanding and checking your competence and your strengths and weakness areas on your English language skills, and then how to put those weaknesses into a SMART template by doing a skills audit, your SWOT analysis, and then developing a plan which then completes this particular first learning outcome of be able to assess your own academic competence in order to conduct research. So at this stage, I would like to ask if there are any questions, because we've completed the first part of the unit, which is the learning outcome 1. So any questions at this stage? Okay, that's good. So if there are no questions, I'm going to end the session today, and then I'm going to see you tomorrow to discuss learning outcome 2. Thanks so much for attending. And if you have any queries or anything that you think of, then my suggestion would be to primarily drop me an email at litc@ukversity.co.uk, and I'll send these templates over that I've discussed to you as well just after the session, and they should also be available on Moodle shortly, so that you can pick them up and start filling them up as far as the first learning outcome is concerned. Thank you for joining.